My name is Sandlund and I'm from Stockholm, Sweden. I am working on an exhibition that me and my husband are collaborating on. We've been asked to create a show around our creative life. And Preston and I met through glass, and we worked a lot on a lot of collaboration, but also kind of like my designs. And Preston was then at that time my gaffer. We haven't not worked on them since 2003. So these pieces are called Dimensions. It's a celebration of the medium glass. The medium glass has an ability to kind of create a lot of dimension in it, and depending on if it's sitting in front of daylight or you light it in a specific way, more and more things happen in it. This piece will be cut on the bottom, polished, cut on the top, polished, and polished on two sides. And I think that for me, and I've been thinking about this a lot this week, I like the simplicity that the medium can achieve in its design. So if you notice, like I don't work with cane, I don't apply a lot of things. It's nearly like I'm looking for the perfect shape, and then I attack it afterwards. This shape means a lot to me. It was a shape that I designed when I arrived here in '95. It's kind of in honor of the city that I'm from, Stockholm. Stockholm is built on 14 islands, and this piece, even if the white piece is kind of symbolizing its perfect shape, it's blown in many different colors. And the color theme that I worked on was inspired by the palette of the buildings in Stockholm. It's a perfect vase for a single stem flower. And Preston and I, with the pieces that we're blowing today, we're gonna add a different aspect to it. We're gonna sandblast on the top and also play with the lighting effect that this one have. Depending on how you're lighting it, you kind of get a shadow effect with this piece. I believe that I had a great opportunity. I traveled, I went to school international, I speak different languages. A lot of people always say like, oh, English is your second language. I think I don't speak any language better than English. I speak Swedish without an accent. I went to school in France. But the creative aspect of to finding the creative path as a woman, it's not that easy. And especially not like, there was someone, a gallerist in Paris, that shared with me that, hey, you go out maybe with a BFA, MFA, etc., you have one show. And I'm going to use Seattle right now. You have one show at Henry. You maybe have one second show in Seattle, or hopefully New York. Very rarely will you have a third. And he also brought something to me, this man, like seeing the person that I was. I really liked solving problems. He said that it was something that was in communication design, like, we can find you a rich sponsor, we can find you, or you have to learn how to struggle. None of them sounded very, attractive to me. And he kind of started to talk about graphic design, advertising, and I started to be curious about that. I can still do my creative and be in charge of my own financial needs. And I think that I didn't really realize that that was what I was doing until a few years into my career. But a career can also take up a lot of time. And I think that moving here, starting working for Nordstrom, a brand that I thought, I'll be here for 3 years, and realized I've been there for 30 years, retired this spring. I fell in love with it, still in love with it. So the pieces that we're blowing here at Museum of Glass has 3 different color themes. One, like the dimension, there is a holiday theme to it. It's a winter theme that is rooted around the color green. So, and I'm so happy that we actually blew one of the dark green colors, because every color kind of should live around that color. Then the Stockholm vase that I just talked about is in spring colors. People can also think about it like Easter. And then the vases that we're working on now, the flower pots, are more summer. So I believe that Preston works so much in fall that I'm staying away from fall. Yeah. Being here with Ben, Sarah, and Gabe, Alex, Trent, working with such an amazing team, and I would say like they are the best team, and I feel extremely fortunate, and I'm learning so much from them, and seeing their passion that they're putting into it. I am grateful. I am so excited about the work that they have produced, and the quality of the work has been, it's really, really rewarding.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. My name is Susan, and I'm the Curator of Education here at the Museum of Glass. And it's a great honor for me to make some of the introductions to our lectures. Before I start, I wanted to recognize trustees in the audience. Thank you, trustees, for your service. And we have our Executive Director over here on the left, Debbie Link. Thank you for being here. It's been a busy, busy afternoon. Lots of glass enthusiasts around here today, and a great weekend. Yesterday, our sister organization, the Pilchuck Glass School, had their fundraising gala, big annual event, and we were all there to support them. And congratulations, they had a wonderful event. And now, it is my great honor to introduce my friend and colleague, Åsa. It's a real pleasure to have her here, and you can see the exceptional body of work that's being created. Gosh, what a treat. Look at those forms and the color, so sophisticated, simple, and elegant. So Åsa was born in Stockholm, Sweden, not Scotland. That'd be me. Åsa studied in France and England and spent 2 years at the Sorbonne and earned her BFA at Beckmans School of Design. She began her career as an art director, working on accounts like for Ikea and Saab. Her role as a design assistant at Kosta Boda earned her a scholarship to the Pilchuck Glass School. Åsa immigrated to the US in 1995, about when I did, too. I think I came in 1996. And joined Nordstrom as a graphic designer and art director. She rose through various creative leadership roles and recently retired as a senior creative director, overseeing Nordstrom's brand strategy. Her work has earned numerous awards, as you can imagine. She has also served on advisory boards for Islandwood, the Pilchuck Glass School, Artist Trust, the University of Washington's Professional Advisory Council. In addition to her corporate role, Åsa is an accomplished glass artist, as you can see. Her work has been exhibited in galleries in the US and abroad, and featured in publications like New Glass Review and the New York Times. Her work spans from the functional to the decorative, as you can see from these pieces that are emerging from her residency. She constantly strives for simplicity in design, resulting in these sophisticated and elegant forms. We hope you enjoy this talk as we have enjoyed this residency so much. We'll have to have you back again. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you. On that note, I don't think I need to say anything more. I think she did a really, really good overview of me as a creative. I thought that you probably all wonder, who is she? Where did she come from? And Susan kind of clarified with you guys, I'm not from Scotland, I'm from Sweden. Sweden is a place up north. It is between Norway and Finland, and south of it is Denmark. Things that are invented in Sweden is the dynamite, the Nobel Prize, Ikea, H&M, ABBA. My generation, I love ABBA. Bad mood, play ABBA, right? But there's Roxette, it's Ace of Base, and Spotify. So you think of that mighty little country up north with 8 million people. What do we Swedes do? And this is the story about me. This is the first time I am 4 years old, and my parents had decided to have me and my sister, who's 5 years older, painted by an artist named Erling Johansson. I remember this day. My mom always said that she was nervous that me, the 4-year-old, was going to be really, really antsy because I was busy. I sat still until he was done. I remember, not because people told me about the environment, I remember the environment, I remember the colors, and of course I remember the portrait because it's up in my parents' apartment still. Stockholm is a beautiful city. For you who haven't been there, it's built on 14 islands. And this picture means a lot to me. It's the beginning of Stockholm's history. It's the oldest part of Stockholm. It has one of the oldest buildings from 700 in the middle, the round building. That's the only part that is standing in Stockholm from the beginning. To the left of that building is a printing factory and a book publishing company that I interned for 1 year. And to the right is the part where I had my first apartment when I moved in when I was 17 years old. And in the background there's a park where Preston, my husband, and I had our wedding party. My parents married. My father was young. My mom was she was 28. They had my sister, and I came 5 years later. My parents stayed married until my mom passed away in 2018. They were happily married. I was raised with a lot of love and a big family on both sides. My mom had 5 brothers, and my father had 4. My mom's family immigrated from Estonia in 1944. I grew up in a family with accents, like I have an accent. I will never get rid of it. It gets me away with a lot. Me and my sister spent a lot of our time with family. We skied. Someone asked me, do you cross-country ski yesterday? And I said, of course I do. You know, as soon as you stand up, you cross-country ski in Sweden. You cross-country ski to school, you cross-country ski with your family, and you grow things. My family, we grow things. And I spent a lot of my summers with my mom's brothers and my cousins on that side, learning how to be a good gardener, grow things that you can eat for a family of 36. But I was a teenager, and this is an interesting picture. When you understand what I did in my career, this is taken by a quite well-known street photographer, Mikael Borg. I never knew that I was photographed. This is a picture taken of me. I'm 14 years old. I am at an amusement park. My father is in the printing business. He prints the ticket to this amusement park. I go to this amusement park a lot. And apparently, way too late on a Friday night. 10 years ago, this was found by my friends. They were at the photo exhibition about this photographer, and they stood in front of this picture and they said, I know these 2 girls. One of them is me. A lot of things goes around. What I like about it, I try to think about what's going on in my mind. My mom is in medical research, really encouraged good education. My father has a creative soul. He's in the creative printing business, but they do believe that if you have a mind and brain to studying and liking school, you should get a good education. I want to be an artist. You can and I would like to describe to you,
If you don't come from a creative family, and academia is really appreciated, being an art, saying that you want to be an artist is a pretty empty word in a family. I had to come up with a strategy at this age. Because in Sweden, when you start at this age, you have to pick direction. We don't have the same school system that you guys do. You go into high school and you can kind of keep wandering in high school, not really knowing exactly what to do. When you're 14 in Sweden, you have to do, it's easier. If you want to be a doctor, that's easier to decide at that point. It's easier to decide if you go into the engineering or the financial. We pick a path when we are 14 years old. I didn't pick my path. My parents picked my path. You're good at math. Your sister did economics. You should do economics. And my mom said to me, if you want to be an artist, you better be good with money. I took a graduation. I mean, I found this picture last night. So this is my Estonian grandmother, Lydia. My daughter's named after her, and my mom. And it's interesting. They are so relieved that I got a degree in economics. You see how my mom is like holding my hand there? Like I was like laughing last night that, you know, there's no better picture than that is like, yes, she got it. In case everything falls apart, she has a marketing degree and she has a degree in economics. But I was done with my commitment to my parents. And during gymnasiet, I actually moved from home. I had my own apartment, but I graduated, and 1 month later, I moved to Paris. And the one thing that Susan kind of touched on, too, that I went to school in England, I spent a lot of summer in England and taking classes, and I also did kind of a broad program at Oxford. A lot of my friends went to US, and I really wanted to study in England a lot, so I spent a lot of time over there. But Paris, and this was kind of like an out for me, a really strategic out. And I'll tell you this, my sister went to Paris, and since my sister was doing so well, you know, she did economics, she did Paris, this is like, never been to Paris. I thought that if I can just get on that train, get to Paris as quickly as I can, then I can kind of like figure my creative life out, and I don't have to have the input of my parents. In Paris, in France, they have a lot of opinions. Everything is discussed. And so if you learn the language and study it, you can be having a lot of interesting conversation because they are not holding back. They discuss everything. And they also kind of have a strike, a monthly strike of something, public transportation, you know, air travel, libraries, schools, universities, and it's a lot of things to talk about. I stayed there. I wanted to stay there forever. But you know what? It's tricky to stay in Paris because this is before EU. So Swedish people have to have a job. So I'm just going to break it down. I was a nanny. I got health insurance paid for the family that I worked for. It was the only way for me to have a place there. I went to school there. I lived in a chambre de bonne, a small room with a bed and a sink. No, I didn't have a shower. I had to go to the bathhouse. I had a simple life, but it was inspiring. During this time when I was in Paris, Paris celebrated their 200th anniversary from the French Revolution. And it was hope. A lot of new buildings went up, and they cleaned up the city. So there was a lot of really positive energy. But I was running out of money. And my father kind of had a pretty strategic conversation with me that if you come back to Sweden, and I tell you the interesting thing in Sweden is that education is free, and health insurance is free. And there's a lot of things that it's much easier to live there when you're a student because you're kind of taken care of. You get paid to go to school. So if I continue the school, I get a monthly payment by the government to stay educated. You know what? It sounded like a since I studied economics, that kind of sounded like a good idea. So I went home and I worked in a printing factory. I worked in some ad agency as an assistant to learn a skill that I had to have going into the art school that I went into and wanted to go to. Beckmans School of Design. was a school that took in 18 students in communication design and 18 students in fashion. And I had a fantastic class, very creative, some of them really, really well-known designers. I felt like all of us got a lot of really great work and jobs when we graduated. But here's the thing. I knew where I wanted to go. I wanted to go to this one creative director that worked for this one agency, and I kind of knew where I was going to go after school. So I kind of like worked with my advisor and said, you know what, I'm going to go for this agency that designed the Absolute vodka bottle. They also did all the advertising for Ikea, and they worked with Saab. And in the 90s, Saab was a great car. And I said, I don't need to do an internship or do my thesis in agency world because I know where I'm going. I really would like to experience the medium glass. And how did I get to that point? I did a photography exhibition, and this editor from Design magazine had a conversation with me, and he said, you know, I see you photographing a lot of object and glass. Have you ever thought about doing three-dimensional things? And I said, I think about that all the time. And all of a sudden, I was like, it clicked with me. I heard a lecture by an artist, Anne Wallström, and I went to my advisor and I said, I would like to be an intern with this woman, Anne Wallström, who's a designer at Kosta. And they said, you know what, you shouldn't work with Anne. And I was like, why not? I want to work with Anne. And they said, no, you should work with Gunnel Salin. Gunnel Salin, and I understand now why. Because Anne Wallström became a really close friend. But Gunnel Salin became my employer, my inspiration, a woman who loved color. But it wasn't so easy to convince her that I was going to be her assistant. Those days, you have to make a phone call. That phone call, the person actually picked up the phone. You have to sell yourself as a non-glass designer, not even a glass blower. So clarifying fact, don't blow glass, okay? So I'm telling her, I'm me, I would like to be your design assistant. And she says, why? Why do you think I need an assistant? I was like, everyone needs an assistant. She said, write me a letter. And if you express, if you can convince me that I need you as an assistant, I'll hire you. One Tuesday, she calls me up. This is in midwinter. Sweden is cold. We have snow. I don't have a car. I live in the city. I'm poor. She calls me up on a Tuesday. You know what? If you want to be my assistant, meet me at the kiosk on Monday. What kiosk? There is only one kiosk in Kosta. Okay, where am I going to live? No, I didn't say that. I said, do you have any recommendation where I could live? She said, call the kiosk. I ended up calling the kiosk, and all of a sudden, on a clear, early Sunday, I arrive in Kosta, and this is what Kosta looks like. It's not much in Kosta, but it's a factory. There's way more things. So for people who have been visiting there more recently, there is more things there today than it was when I was there. The first trip when I worked with her, I didn't take any pictures because I was so focused on working with her. And also, it's not the digital world. Picture costs money. I was poor. I didn't take that many pictures. Second trip, I was working with her on a very specific mission. We were prepping for an exhibition, mixing colors, and I did a lot of testing for her. So testing in color, and in factory work, you work with a lot of powder color because it's cheaper versus opaque colors that I've been working with that is expensive. Something happens there. One day on the glass blowing floor in the factory, the president comes up to me and he says, hey, we have some visitors coming from the US and Italy. They're doing a demo here. We're having a dinner tonight. And since you're working here, really, they don't have that many girls there. So I understood. Would you have time to attend the dinner? I'm thinking free meal. Yes, I will show up for the dinner. Within a few minutes of that, I arrived. I meet this guy. I fell in love with him right away. This is Preston Singletary, 29 years old. He's here somewhere. This is the Ulrika Hydman Wallin, a quite well-known artist, has a gathering. I'm invited there too. This is captured by her husband, Bertil Wallin, of Preston and me, when he invited me to an event the second night he's there that I'm not invited to, that he invited, which you don't really do in Sweden, but he ended up doing it. And I'm grateful that he did, because, you know, they had a great workshop with Lino and Dante, and they did a demo, and I found my husband. Preston fell in love with me too. He spent a few extra weeks. They went to Finland, they came back to Stockholm, they had a demo at the art college. I went to Seattle that summer. Preston was like, hey, do you want to have children? And I said, I want to have 4. If I have a daughter, she will be named Lydia. And he said, if I have a son, he will be named Orlo. We have both of them. We have an Orlo and we have a Lydia. So you know what? If you want to work fast and capture the one you love, just do it. Don't like beat around the bush. Just like get it done. Preston Singletary, well done. He moved to Sweden. And he also knew that I was working on my graduation show. And of course, since he's a glass blower and I'm not, instead of me going to the factories, Preston and I work with the different studios, and it's not that many freestanding glass studios in Sweden at that time. There's more today. And we worked on my graduation show. My graduation show was inspired by a book that I had written together with my friend Maria Songe. We wrote a book about typography, and typography was changing this time. When I learned in the beginning of graphic design, everything was hand-done. You wax things, you cut out, you go into the camera. In '93, the computers, there was desktop, Elsa came, the Macintosh, the first Macintosh, and things started to happen around typography. And I felt that I wanted to really symbolize these 14 type families that had a purpose in the old days around typography before all the rules were broken. So my mentor, my employer, Gunnar Salin, came to my graduation show and inspected the pieces, making sure that they look good. And these are 2 pieces inspired by Bodoni and Courier. And Courier is the typography that was developed for typewriters to pick up the ink. They have to have a specific surface for the ink to really pick up. Bodoni was designed by an Italian in the 1700s for writing and for reading. Bodoni has then evolved in the computer world more to something like headlines, because it's too fine in the computer. I created an installation, and this installation I got a lot of, a lot of press, a lot of attention. I got a lot of projects from this. And who is helping me with this, right? Preston Singletary. And you know what? The interesting thing is that Preston Singletary for a nanosecond was my American blower. That's how the press done it. He's my American blower. And I looked at that article like, that is not right. And you know what? Since I lived in Paris and I lived in England, and I speak different languages. I mean, I don't speak any language better than English, just so you know. I speak many languages. This is the best it gets. So I said to Preston, you know what? I moved to Seattle. I can do it. But you know what? I need to just show my parents that I get that job that I always said that I wanted to get, and then I come. So that summer, I got a grant, and I went to Pilchuck, and Preston was the TA for Josiah McLehaney. He established to come back and work for Benjamin Moore. The man in the background, Dick Weiss, is an amazing artist and also a human being. He offered our first home. We rented for him and Sonja Blomdahl for 3 years before we bought our first house. Preston worked for Benjamin Moore. And you know what? The joy for me to working here with Ben, Sarah, Gabe, this team up on the screen there, that what they are today, these guys are the best. I'm extremely fortunate that I get to be here this week and working with Ben, Sarah, and Gabe. Because you know what? My husband was part of a team very similar to that in the 90s, and he worked for them, I think, for 20 years before he went out. The work that Preston did during that time, some of the pieces were, I think, inspired by my culture, but his culture was important. So I got that dream job, working for the agency that designed Absolute Vodka, got to work on the Ikea account, and actually I transferred to US with that account because we opened up Ikea in LA in 1995, and I got to help them on their signage program. That was my job, but it wasn't a full-time job, and I needed to get a job. So I'm going to just tell you a simple story. I get married on a Sunday to Preston. I become legal on Tuesday, Wednesday, and I have a conversation with Nordstrom on Thursday. Nordstrom hired me as a freelance designer, and within 1-2 months, I get hired as a full-time designer. But I tell you, my Nordstrom friends said that I had a hobby called glass. And my glass friend said, yeah, she needed a job because she was scared about not having insurance. So Preston and I continued getting our insurance paid by Nordstrom, and I did my day job. And as you can see, for some of you who sit here in the audience who knows me, there are similarities to what I'm working on at Nordstrom. Anniversary had a logo many years with dots in it. A lot of these colors come from the glass work that I was working on. You exercise colors. If the people around you like them, then you do them in glass, and you make them in dots at work. And hopefully, if you pitch it, the marketing department and the leadership will like it. Anyway, we showed Matthew Kangas curated a show, Foreign Glass. It's called Haas, Masami Koda, Preston and I, and we traveled to Lubbock, Texas. We started to show this curation of work started to kind of get some attention. I started to show at Gumps. I started to get really, really busy. Preston started to get attention for his work within his culture. That was extremely inspiring from him. And for some of you who's maybe familiar with his career, you know where it took him. We had children, the Orlo and Lydia. And they started to inspire my life, and I wanted to be with them. So I said to Preston, you know what? In Sweden, we get 18 months off with paid to care for your children. In America at that time, you get 6 weeks. And I thought it was time for me to kind of like move on so that we could work with the glass and do the things that Preston and I always dreamed of. Nordstrom negotiated me back. They negotiated and said, hey, we have a better role for you. You can be the creative director. And I thought, creative director, that kind of looks good on the resume. Creative director, Nordstrom. I mean, Nordstrom is an amazing brand that I tell you, it inspired me every day when I worked there. But I got a question the other day, so I'm going to define creative director. I'm not a clothing designer. I work in marketing. Marketing, how do you manage a brand? How do you manage how the brand, expresses itself in all these different platforms? Why do you have to evolve a logo? Well, because no longer is it important that it only works on stores and tangible objects. It has to live in small platforms. The logo we had in the 90s didn't really work. Some of you are probably familiar with silver boxes. Customers up in the Northwest loves this box. As soon as Nordstrom tried to change it, we get hate letters. One time Blake Nordstrom put a binder of hate letters because we tried to change the box. But you know what? silver is not good for the environment. So we evolved to black and white. We had to look for reusable, bags because we open up a store and people in New York walk on the street and the bags cannot just be paper. And let me not start about anniversary sale. Me and my team has done 25 different anniversary sale promotion. And in the last 1.5 years, I worked with RAC. Great brands, great prices. RAC is an amazing treat to shop. And there's a lot of tricks to shop RAC and shop really well. And I know all of them, so ask me if you want to know secrets. When I sat last night and I thought about this, and I worked for Nordstrom for 30 years. There was a special project with a special human being. He's an artist, Ruben Toledo, that Cheryl Zornizer, one of our VP creative director, engaged with in year 2000. We worked 10 years with him, and something that he really inspired me and his wife, Isabel Toledo, was to have fun when you work. And working with them was fun. And I know a woman who sits in the audience here who came with me to New York one time, Monta, and we had fun. So when you work, you have to have fun. Because when you get to be paid, I guess I did a creative job for 30 years with a paid scale. And they helped me support my husband, my favorite brand, to become Preston Singletary. This is an exhibition. I can give him a big applause because I'm proud of him. My mom, she loved Preston. But she was pretty clear with me he didn't have money. And I said to my mom, I'll make money if I need money. And you know what? Sometimes when love hits you, you just have to be determined. And if you have love and you have willingness and you have to have a little bit of goal and help each other get there, life can become quite amazing. I retired this spring to work with my husband and to spend more time and do things with him, things that he and I dream of. And during the time, he started to learn something about casting. He's not really casting himself. So I said, I go to Pilchuck and take a casting class. And he's like, why are you taking a casting class? It's so difficult and complicated. And I was like, I like difficult. I like chemistry. I like baking. And I want to know what it is. So I learned what it is. And I did some pretty extreme things that my class inspired me to do. And you know what? I can't say it's the best or the most kind of like innovative, but I know the process of casting. So, latitude 58, if I did a trick question, is about the latitude where Stockholm is. I think Stockholm is 57, and Sitka, where Preston's family is originally from, is 59 or something. So we have picked kind of like a number. This is a project we're working on. We were asked, Preston had a conversation with the director from the National Nordic Museum 1.5 years back. And they came to us and they asked us they wanted to do a creative story about our creative life. And Preston and I started because Preston was like, I'm Native American, I'm not Scandinavian. And they said, well, your wife is. So here we are. We started to kind of think about this show, and we are building a story about us. I am the white raven, the trickster, and Preston is the brown eagle. And that's the answer why I'm here. I asked for support from Museum of Glass to be able to have Ben, Sarah, and Gabe help me blow these pieces that you see on the floor here today. They are 4 different shapes. So on that note, I also want to thank Preston, Sean Albert, and Ross Richmond, who was here helping us blow some additional work on the side of Ben, Sarah, and Gabe. Because what I talked to Ben about, I want to go back and visit these pieces. They need really, really good glass. So where I come from, we had in the 90s, crystal. Crystal is extremely clear. We can't blow crystal here. It's poisonous. It will hurt us. But they have really good glass here. So we have built, first of all, we have had an amazing productive week. I don't know how many pieces we have done. I think we've done over like 40 pieces, which is, I'm extremely excited about that. These pieces will be used in the show. I'm going to tell you a little bit. When you saw the first picture that I showed about Stockholm, this is one of the pieces that I designed when I moved here. They are inspired by Stockholm, the color palette of the city of Stockholm, and the disc up here is symbolizes the 1,000 islands that surround Stockholm. Stockholm is built on 14, but there's an archipelago of 1,000 islands around it. The dimension piece that we worked on yesterday and here, it's cold work. It's a celebration of the medium glass. When you look at it from all the different angles, this piece is quite heavy. It weighs around 10 to 12 pounds. I think it weighs more. It appreciates the glass. You look at it and you think it's two colors. You look at it and you kind of like, how many shapes is in that piece? And if you mess with the outside of it, it creates prism in it. Things that can't be done in anything else than glass when you work with that thickness. And then we have the plates that Preston, Ross, and Sean was working on. These are going to be sandblasted and be placed kind of in a similar structure like I had at my graduation show. And then today we're working on flower pots. And flower pots is blown in with a technique called incolmo. And we have had one day with them, and this is the second day. We're going to do one in lapis blue this afternoon. And I've been pinching myself every day, and I've been talking to my dad that, you know, being able to be here and do this, I feel extremely, extremely grateful. And thank you for listening to me and my story. And that's the end and the beginning of a new chapter of my life. Okay, Serena's asking me, do you have any questions? Oh yes, hello. Say it again. Oh, Åsa, oh, yes, my name. You know, that's a good one. Thank you for that question. Well, my parents gave me that name. So in Swedish mythology, there are 4 names, beginning of time: Åsa, Ragnar, Ylva, and Björn. My sister's name is Ylva, and my name is Åsa, the easiest name to spell in Sweden. That was, it took a long time for my parents to decide on my name, but my father's best friend said that if he had a daughter, he would name her Åsa, and my parents just looked at me and said, her name is Åsa. So, yeah, it sounds really good in Swedish. In English, I get Åsa, I get all kinds of names, but the easiest name to kind of pronounce it is like O-S-A, Åsa. Thank you, perfect question. Yes, Sarah. When will the show be up? Well, hey, that's a great question. So, the request from the National Nordic Museum was that the show was going to open up next October. Nordic Museum is going through some evolution, and we're still talking to them, and the curator that we work with, Leslie Anderson, went to Rolling Museum in Florida. Leslie Anderson is a fantastic curator that we love working with, Preston and I, and we are kind of in conversation with her if it will be sponsored by the Rolling Museum and be open, if it opens up there first in 27, but anyway, still in discussion. But thank you. Dinah? What is my new favorite color and why? Oh yeah, the team knows that one. First of all, my favorite color is yellow. It's always been yellow. And sometimes when the team asks me, what color are we going to blow? Blow yellow. Because if something happens with yellow, I still like it. And that piece, this was the first piece. I really like it because it's yellow, but something happened with the clear. Yellow is really strong, so it's called saffron. And you know how you cook and bake with saffron, it spreads everywhere? Well, yellow is the same way. So it takes a little bit of time to kind of like how much yellow you use. But the one, and this is crazy, I don't use that word. I have a really hard time with green. And then all of a sudden I was at Pilchuck this summer and I ended up with green the whole time. I was like, I do not like green and casting. And I come back from Pilchuck and the only thing I think about is green. So I have a lot of green. And, but today I really like pink. So never worked with pink before, ever. Never really in any printed pieces. I did in weddings. We did use pink in weddings. Yes, but I would say yellow is always, if I have to design with something, I design with yellow. Anniversary sale, if anyone shops anniversary sale, what color is it? Yellow, yes. Any other question? Oh, yes. Yes. Yes, all right. He wonders, how will Preston's work interact with my work? Well, this is the best part, because all these pieces that we've blown here are canvases for him. So we're using my work, my design, to tell the story of us, because my designs is part of our story. And weaving the story together would not be the story without my work in it. And so we are using the plates for him to sandblast on. We're going to sandblast on the clear part of the flower pots. And the best part, which is the simplest, my designs are quite simple, but there are things that happens to them afterwards. And they are precise. They're not easy to make. They look easy. But when you design on top of here, it becomes like a light show. So it's like two pieces. I'm not going to give away all the secrets right now, but is that a good answer? Yeah, yeah. Yes. Oh. Well, I have 16 cousins. All of them went the academic way. They wonder, how were you so brave? Why did you take off on that? How could you do that when some of them maybe could have been an amazing architect or creative? I believe that a doctor is a creative job. They can't diagnose us with the same, we come to the doctor for different solutions, etc. I look at my life as I was raised with courage. I was encouraged to be really independent really early on. Me and my sister spent a lot of time together traveling. We did our first trip to Greece. I shouldn't really say this, but when I was 12 and she was 17. I lived by myself. My parents, not because I had to, but I had an apartment when I was 17. I understood Estonian when I was little. It's very few people in the world speaking Estonian, not only related to Finnish and Hungarian. I understand some today. I speak Swedish, speak English, I speak French. I think that having a flexibility of being open to change is probably the one thing that have really helped me in my life as a creative, because I like to solve problems, and I like to solve problems for myself. I keep moving. I don't get stuck, I think. People that work with me in the room, would you agree? Probably, yeah. Yeah. So I think that I am extremely lucky that I have had the opportunity to both be creative and also be creative with a pay, Preston usually say a pay scale. I get paid to do what I love, but also have the opportunity now to retire and look back on my career at Nordstrom is nothing that I regret. I love every single day. I love the people that I work with. I love my team. I think we have done amazing work that I'm proud of. I met some of my best friends there. I've had amazing mentors, and the brand itself is something that's really close to my heart. And I've had Preston along my side that has grown, and I think that I created security for him to be him, like my parents did for me.
Thank you so much. That was really fascinating and interesting, and we're looking forward to seeing what you're going to do this afternoon. The team will be back at 2:30. Please join us then. Thank you.